One of the things that we also want to be sure that we cover as you're thinking about barbecue and thinking about being sure that you do a good job with food safety is talk a little bit about temperatures, thermometers, all those things that go into being sure that the product is safe and wholesome to eat. One of the things that we want to be sure that we do is cook products to their temperatures that will ensure that they're safe. The biggest one of those, and the thing that seems to be the one that really seems to get confused sometimes, is thinking about solid muscle cuts, like most of the things that we do with barbecue and ground products as well. You know, when we think about large cuts, if you really think about it, the only real concern for those is that those outside surfaces could have some type of bacteria that could cause food safety issues, those kind of things. Fortunately, most of the time we're cooking in temperatures that are 200, 225, 250 and up. So we're going to expose those surfaces to enough temperature to kill most of those bacteria that would cause foodborne illness, and also some of those that would cause spoilage as well. The issue comes when we take trimmings off of those cuts, or if we decide we don't want those, we don't need that cut, so we're going to grind that cut. Now those surface areas are all throughout the product. When we do that, the temperature of the product's got to go up to be sure that we ensure that those products are safe. It's usually not a problem when we're talking about some of those cuts that are challenged somewhat by connective tissue, like briskets or pork Boston butts or even ribs, where we're going to take those to a higher degree of doneness or a higher temperature, not to kill bacteria, but to actually make them more tender, because we're being able we're trying to cut down or melt that connective tissue and make sure that it's easily palatable and all the things that go with that. So we may have a food safety temperature that we've got to hit for safety that's lower than our final temperature we're trying to do for being sure that the product is high quality, it eats well, it's tender, moist, juicy, all of those kind of things. To do that, one of the things that seems to be an issue from time to time is how do you know where those temperatures are? What's the temperature we need to go to for a certain product? Those kind of things. And I frequently run into people that say, well, I only do that by feel. And that's great as long as you're feeding your family, or you're you're sure you've done this on a day-to-day basis for a long time. You may have a pretty good idea. But to be sure, I feel like that the best thing you can do is have a good, high-quality thermometer. And I've looked at a lot of these. I don't work for any of those companies. I don't want to try to sell you one type of thermometer or another, but I do feel like there's some of these that do better than others. And some of the things that you need to watch for can you calibrate the thermometer? How do you know? Say, well, I've got a thermometer, but I've never checked the thermometer temperatures. All I've done is use it to check product. How do you know that thermometer is right? There's some that come to us with a certificate of calibration. This company actually makes one that's very nice. It actually is almost an instant read thermometer, and so it will almost instantly read and tell you how or what the temperature is. It reads at the end of the probe. That's another thing to be sure that you remember. There's some of these thermometers that read by having to be sure that they're inserted further up into the product so that you cover a dimple that's on the side of them or something like that. And so there are thermometers out there for different uses. Some are obviously more expensive than others. There's some less expensive, very easily affordable thermometers that do a good job. But again, it's one of those things where we need to check and be sure that they're calibrated correctly. In today's market, not only can you get some of these, but there's some real mid-price thermometers that do a great job as well, that are digital readouts. Usually those are, there are some of these that are calibratable, some are not. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about how you calibrate one so you get to a point to where you're confident that you're at the right temperature, both for food safety and for food quality again. And I want to be sure that I keep emphasizing that, because I think that that's one of the things that sometimes we forget, is how much we depend on these somewhat for food quality as well as food safety. So we can do some of these. The old standbys that have been around a long time are these type of bimetal thermometers that are dial thermometers. And there's a number of different kinds of these, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with these as long as you know that they're reading correctly. Some of the things that make these a little differently, if you notice the one I have in front of you here, on the back side of this thermometer, there is no nut or no way to be able to calibrate that thermometer or move the dial at all. It's a single type use thermometer. So it's either right or it's not right. And so we need to be sure that we check those. This one is a little bit different in that it does have a nut on the back of it that can be used for being able to change or calibrate the thermometer based on what we find here in just a second when we put these into boiling water and what we might put them into an ice bath. So those are the two types of very inexpensive thermometers that I see a lot out there on the market. Some of them are even giveaway type thermometers, and that's great as long as they work. If they don't, we need to not use those. In fact, I'll encourage you that if you find one that's not reading correctly, you have no way to calibrate it, please throw it away. It's really not doing anybody any good, and somebody might come into your establishment, think that it's correct, and utilize that to a way that might be detrimental.